Hello and welcome to another Overlord lore video, and as usual thanks to my patrons for supporting this channel. Now, under many videos of mine the question was asked whether or not Tuare might have been able to become a Battlemate, and today we are going to look into exactly that. Now, while Overlord isn't finished with Sebas and Tuares' capture basically closed, both of them enjoying their well-earned happy end, something that by the way is pretty rare for New Worlders, with Brain Anglaus, Gazev Stronov, the royal family excluding Renna, Team Foresight, and so many good, bad and neutral characters already dead. Or at least wishing that they were. Tuare could already consider herself very lucky. Aside from Renna and by extent Climb, nobody, not even Nea, has received that much direct protection from the Grey Tomb of Nezarick as an outsider. But still the question remains. Could have Tuare become a Battlemate? Well, it depends. Under different circumstances, for example if Ainz would have interpreted the existence of that battlesuit of Azud Aindra as a sign that the enemies that have mind-controlled Shaltir are recruiting, and perhaps even tried to recruit Shaltir but failed, then maybe instead of playing it safe, Ainz might not only have reformed the Adventurer Guild from basically a Monster Hunter Guild to armed explorers, but in an effort to not be simply overwhelmed by enemy numbers, Nezarick might have started to train New Worlders. And by train I mean make them as powerful as possible. The question then is who would train her, and the answer to it is pretty obvious. Sebas, who already is in a relationship with her, would not only show her the way of the maid, but the way of battle as well. And since Tuare has every reason to become stronger, considering her past, she would likely be very determined. But if this shouldn't be enough, after Irantel is already under the control of Nezarick and Momon is a hero, nobody would notice if Ainz revives Tuare's sister, Nina, both in an effort to motivate Tuare and to add Nina and her talent of faster mastery of spells to the tomb as well. Now, Tuare's little sister might then be placed under Fluda Paradane's tutelage, who, remember, after 200 years is a well-versed teacher, and thus could turn Nina easily into an apt mage. Now, motivated by the return of her sister, Tuare would do everything to become a strong Battlemate, and therefore she should, at the very least, be as determined as Climb, and therefore be able to reach level 20, the natural level cap in Dungeons and Dragons. As a hand-to-hand or rather fist-to-face unarmed combat specialist, Tuare would somewhat mirror Sebas' character, with levels in Monk and other melee-related classes. But Sebas is not only a melee specialist, but also able to master his chi, to heal people or deal damage, something Tuare will also likely be thought to do. And in contrast to healing magic, this would also enable her to heal the undead, for example Yuri Alpha as well. And speaking of the head Battlemate, she also might occasionally take part in her education, granting her access to classes such as Single Brawler. And since Tuare's education would occupy the time of an extremely strong individual, it would be a shame to let it all go to waste, if, or rather when she dies. Therefore I wouldn't be surprised if Tuare, similar to Climb and Renna, would be given a race-changing item, one that turned Tuare into a Dragonoid, like Sebas. And with bonuses in her Dragonoid form but Mali in her humanoid form, she, even if she was capped at level 20, could still outclass Climb in her Dragonoid form, especially in unarmed combat, and extra especially after Climb's death. And speaking of him, it's interesting how truly useful the stamina potion from Inferior turned out to be, though Climb might only be able to enjoy it once he already is healed, and only the stamina replenishing effect is required. But enough of this particular dog and his submissive style, and back to the topic at hand, because Tuare could use the stamina potion as well, in order to train longer and harder. And Tuare as a Dragonoid might not only lose her slave levels, but she might now have a way higher level cap than your average run-of-the-mill human, likely as another consequence of her transformation. So not only would she be able to outclass Climb fully, but perhaps breach into the realm of heroes. And here's another interesting thing. The reason for why most exceptional individuals are likely unable to significantly increase their level, even with a higher level cap, is perhaps a lack of worthwhile enemies. Evil Eye, with a harsh battle-focused life, managed to more or less match Entomar, while quote-unquote normal Adamite adventurers failed. So it is definitely possible for New World beings to ascend to the power of the Pleiades, even if it is just barely, and after a transformation into a heteromorph with an infinite lifespan, Tuare might be able to battle her way to this point rather quickly, because as Evil Eye said, the quickest way to regain one's strength after dying, and by extent to level up, is to have harsh battle encounters that will push you to the utmost edge of your abilities. Something the Great Tomb could ensure. Think of it this way, there are probably some people inside of Nezarick who could summon lesser monsters, that is by their standard, perhaps somewhere in their 20s or 30s, against which Tuare could train herself, and while the monsters are only allowed to push Tuare near death, Tuare can just kill them, in order to gain a handsome amount of experience points. Therefore she could fight against high-level enemies and gain massive amount of experience exceptionally quickly, pushing her level into heights that were unreachable within a normal human lifespan, especially if she is presented with higher level monsters that are weak against her specific character build, perhaps crystal monsters or mimics that imitate the faces of the 6-armed Sebas like to smash almost as much as Tuare, if not indeed more. And last but not least, Nezarick has a wide variety of items to aid Tuare with her training. For example, the collars Ainz and the resurrected lizardman leaders were wearing are increasing the amount of experience points gained from leveling in exchange for diminishing stats, as long as the item is equipped. So once it is removed, Tuare would keep the experience points, while simultaneously losing the negative effects of it. Come to think of it, perhaps Climb will use this item as well, though for different reasons. Furthermore, somewhere in the treasury vault Nezarick has some power suits lying around as well, and these things were explicitly used to level up low-level players. So while her own stats would decrease due to the collar, the armor could counteract that, and perhaps allow her to battle even more, and against even stronger monsters. And last but not least, even if Tuare would gain experience points on a rather slow rate, Mare is currently wearing Avarice and Generosity, the world item that is able to absorb experience points from slain enemies, and spends them afterwards for spells or level ups. And considering that at the very least a couple of million XP points should be stored right now inside the world item, given its presence during Einsulgaun's battle against Shaltir, the massacre at the Cat's Plain, and the destruction of the entire kingdom of Riestais by any means and any earthquakes necessary, perhaps Tuare could be brought to the level of a Battlemate that is at least in the mid-40s in an instant. And even if not, Mare could just head out, splat a few natural spawning skeletons on the Cat's Plain, or perhaps the kingdom of Riestais, and then share the experience point gained with Tuare, effectively giving her the experience of 100,000s of battles in the span of a week, without touching the already saved up experience points. And the last thing I wanna point out is gear. While high-level gear is fairly rare even inside of Nezarick, mid-level gear, such as Nea's bow, is referred to by Einsulgaun himself as a trash drop item, implying that he has many more items of this or of similar quality. And while it would be a more or less random outfit, Tuare nonetheless could gain items more or less as strong as the gear of the Battlemates, or at least to the equivalent of the finest items the entire kingdom could offer. So in conclusion, yes, I believe that with enough time, training and transformation, Tuare could eventually become a badass Battlemate, just like the Pleiades. And here's the brilliant thing about it. While the Pleiades themselves can't gain more levels, due to being created via the Great Tomb's own level system, which are limited and hard-capped, Tuare, even while being in her 50s, could still gain levels, but the process would likely be extremely slow and bothersome. And with that said, I say thank you very much for listening, and special thanks to Adam J, Al Capone, Andy, Angel of Death, Bad Guy Yi, Boyzilla, Chrissy, Diabetic Centaur, Dystopia, Elika Birchleaf, Phalis Catus, Theral Shivan, Gigafight, Ghost of Epicness, Hector Marino, Black Phoenix Emperor, Hoss, Jason, Kleinator, Chromius, Large, Lord Touch Me, Lord Ulbert Alain Odell, Luces Ollie, Majima, Matt, Matt C, Marcos, Mr. Shoes, Mindless Wrath, Minnow 13, Mertis, Nefarious Potion, Primus 11, Sasuga Einsama, Sebastian, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Surge, Sparkly Unicorn, The Orc Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, Vash Hawkeye, Zoggo Bane of a Lot, and Zonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, over and out.